This is Faith-Driven Leadership with Eliam Fuentes, and inside this video, you're going to learn the 5 pillars on how to have a successful 2026. Now, this video right here is a live webinar of a series that I just kicked off where we explore and learn topics such as faith, leadership, emotional intelligence, public speaking, and communication, because I believe that these are going to be the core integral parts for you to continue developing in the areas of your life, to continue growing into 2026, to ultimately achieve all the money goals you have, all the goals you have to become the best version of yourself. So in this video, you're going to see the clips of a live webinar of us covering all those different topics. And I want to share with you why we're doing this. The reason why we're doing this in this channel is because we're here to be generous with the wisdom and the experiences that we have, because we know that it could serve value for people watching this right now, like you yourself watching this right now. I know that you can gain something from this, improve your life, even if it's just by 1%, and improve your self-worth. That makes me feel like my mission is complete. And also it's me practicing my public speaking skills and also teaching you public speaking and communication along the way into this YouTube channel and building community especially. And in the future, I'll let you know what we're kind of building inside our business. But without further ado, I'll let you watch the video and learn the 5 pillars of a successful 2026. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button and comment down your favorite takeaway. Enjoy the video. Let's get into the value of today's webinar call, and it's gonna be the 5 pillars to have a successful 2026. So if you haven't gotten your notepads or your notebooks ready yet, you could grab a pen, and this is a perfect opportunity for you to start taking notes on this. And we're gonna talk about the 5 pillars. We're gonna talk about faith over fear. That's the first pillar to have a successful 2026. The second pillar is gonna be leadership, responsible for it all. The third pillar is gonna be emotional intelligence, enough is enough, self-worth. Then there's gonna be the fourth part, which is going to be communication, that communication literally equals your life in 2026. And the last part is going to be storytelling, public speaking aspect on storytelling. So those are gonna be the 5 pillars that we're gonna discuss today. So let's jump into pillar number 1. Pillar number 1 is faith over fear. Now, I want you to think about, what do you think when you hear faith over fear? Now, this has been a mantra and a quote that has been shared. You've probably seen it on like Instagram captions or a quote or maybe someone's hoodie or clothing apparel. You hear faith over fear. And to really dive into like, what does this actually mean? And over the past year in 2025, it really tested me of, am I operating from faith? Am I operating from fear? And asking many different people think like, when I hear faith over fear, they may think, oh, it's a mindset, or it's, it's about my relationship with God, or that they attach it to specific devotion to religion, or maybe they have a different unique answer and perspective, which is really cool. And the way that I'm going to break down faith over fear is that faith over fear, it's 2 polarities, where I believe that people usually have 2 operating systems, 2 belief operating system. On one hand, you could be operating out of faith, and on the other hand, you're operating out of fear. Now, what do I mean by that? Someone who operates out of faith, you operate from the possibility and a strong belief that, hey, I am worthy of abundance. I am worthy of friendship, of love, of relationships, of peace, of joy, of all these things around me. Operating from faith is having a strong belief in the desirable outcome that you want to achieve. I'll repeat that again. Faith is having a strong belief in the desirable outcome that you are looking to achieve. Now, on the other hand, there is fear. Someone who operates fear-based probably sounds like this. I'm not sure if I'm ready. I'm not sure if I'm worthy. That sounds too risky. I don't know if they're gonna like me. I don't know if I can overcome this challenge. That kind of feels like a really big Goliath. So that is fear-based conversations. And to break it down, what fear is that fear is also a belief. However, fear is a belief that it's based when you believe that the belief of the undesirable outcome is stronger than the belief of a desirable outcome. So when you put all your energy and all your attention into making sure that the thing that you do not want to happen, so you put all your energy into the thing that you do not want to happen, that's when you end up producing these thoughts and these feelings of scarcity, of anxiety, of self-doubt, of feelings of unworthiness because you're spending so much time operating from fear, meaning you're not believing in yourself. You're not really believing that God has you taken care of and that He is the Almighty and that He can actually make things happen, that He can move mountains, right? The parable of even just having faith of a mustard seed could move mountains. So that's the first pillar to having a really great, successful year in 2026. Faith over fear. As you go throughout 2026, really always ask yourself, what's my operating system right now? Am I operating from faith-driven conversations, faith-driven actions, faith-driven beliefs and thoughts? Or am I operating from fear-based thoughts? Am I operating from fear beliefs right now? Am I operating from scarcity, scaredness, anxiety, all those different things? So that framework right there is a pillar that you can use for a successful 2026. Faith over fear. So that's the first thing I wanted to cover right there, because as a faith-driven leader, you are a vessel. And I'll end it with this. I'll end this pillar with this story. Not too long ago, there was this girl that asked me, hey, what's the difference between a typical man who leads versus a faith-driven man who leads? And I sat with that question and I was like, what is the difference? And to bring it all to you, like, hey, what I took from it is like, hey, what's the difference between a faith-driven leader and someone who's a leader? Both of them have great leadership qualities, may have results and stuff like that. However, what I noticed and what I dug deeper down into was that a typical person who is a leader, they operate from self-belief that all things are possible and they achieved everything because they had a strong belief in themselves. However, the difference between a typical leader with high self-belief and a faith-driven leader is this. A faith-driven leader knows that everything that they have achieved is because of their belief in God, and that God was the one that gave them all the strength, gave them all the resources, and all the tools to be able to achieve the things. While a typical leader places his belief on what I can achieve, a faith-driven leader places a belief on what God has achieved and what God has allowed that person to achieve. So that's the difference between someone who's a faith-driven leader and someone who's just a regular leader. So if that's resonating with any of you, I'd love for you guys just tap in the chat, like, what are you getting out of this on the faith over fear? And then at the end, we could save time for questions. Pillar number 2 that I want to share with all of you for a successful 2026 is the leadership framework of responsible for it all. Who here has a relationship with responsibilities and has responsibilities? Like, just by a show of hands. Pretty much all of us. And what I'm going to share with you, especially in 2026, like, let this be the year in 2026 where, like, you are responsible for it all, where you're on top of your responsibilities, where you are executing your responsibilities, where you are in ownership of your responsibilities. Because a leader does not look at responsibilities like a burden. A leader does not look at responsibilities like it's a simple checklist task. A leader looks at responsibility with ownership, with humility, and with knowing that responsibilities are required to achieve his purpose. Now, what I'm going to share with you are the 4 levels of responsibility. And this is something that I've gone through in my life, and I wrote a whole speech and a whole story about it. But for the sake of time, I'll just cover the 4 levels of responsibility. The first one is, I have to be responsible. Now, you may catch yourself sometimes going with your tasks and your responsibilities and your day-to-day items, saying like, I have to do this, I have to get this workout done, I have to get this business sale done, I have to make sure I do laundry, I have to make sure I meal prep and cook, I have to make sure that I read and do my meditation, my prayer. I have to. Now, what I'm going to share with you about using that word and phrase, I have to, is that when you use words like I have to, and you come from a place of I have to, like it's like an obligation, that is actually a fear-based conversation that's happening in your subconscious. And the reason I mean by that, it's a fear-based, because when you pay your bills, think of it like this. I have to pay my bills next month, if not, I'm gonna get kicked out and evicted from my apartment or my home. Versus, I am blessed to pay my bills so I can have another month and roof over my head. See like the difference between just those subtle words. One is I have to pay the bills because if not, I'm gonna get kicked out. Where the other one is like, hey, I am blessed to have the responsibility to pay my bills and have a roof over my head. So that's the difference in level one responsibility of I have to. I have to responsibility comes from fear-based and a burden type of responsibility. The second type of responsibility is taking responsibility. Now you're taking ownership. You're taking responsibility. You're taking matters and actions into your own hands. And this is a really unique level because it's the next level from a fear-based. Because the world loves to applaud people who take responsibility. And people who love to get, pardon my language, they love to get stuff done. Who here likes people that likes to get stuff done? So I'm gonna take matters into my own hand. I'm gonna take initiative. I'm going to take essentially, I'm gonna take the task at hand and I'm gonna go get the result. I'm always taking. And what I wanna share with you is that it is a next level. And there's a mantra out there like take ownership. Like make 2026 the year where you take ownership, where you take matters into your own hand. And I have a different, unique view on this because I don't necessarily agree with taking ownership into my own hand. Because if you exemplify the example of taking ownership, taking, it means you're operating from the subconscious mind that there's something you may lack, that there's something that you don't have, so you have to take it and always take it. And it's definitely better than level one, but it's still subconsciously a fear-based victimhood conversation. Because what happens is that even though the world applauds you for taking responsibility and taking ownership, deep down, sometimes that feels like this. Why is it always me needing to take the responsibility? Why is it always me that needs to take on these burdens and take on all these tasks? Why is it always me taking initiative and being the one that gets stuff done? And living in this stage of responsibility, especially if you continue living like that in 2026, it's gonna learn into burnout. It's gonna learn into fatigue, because a leader who operates from always taking responsibility, they tend to always take responsibilities and also just being the one that does it themselves. And it ends up being a burden, a subconscious burden that they don't realize. Leading into level number 3, where we now start developing healthier levels of responsibility. Number 3 is I am responsible. This is where you begin to detach responsibility and start seeing it as neutral. That all the responsibilities that you have in your life are neutral, and that you just start saying like, hey, I am responsible. Whether it's a positive or it's a negative, like I am responsible for what's at hand. And I am responsible, and I start to associate like, hey, what are the things in my strengths and in my weaknesses, in my superpowers, that I know I can get these responsibilities done. And I am responsible is an identity level leadership responsibility. To dive deeper into what I am responsible means, meaning it says like, hey, if you get into a car accident, like, and you were driving, you were in the car, like, hey, I'm responsible. It's not like, hey, I take responsibility and now I'm gonna guilt myself and blame myself and shame myself. It's like, oh, okay, this happened. I am responsible. Like I am simply responsible. There's something that I did or I do or some sort of energy or something that I caused and created that led me up into this moment where it's I am responsible. Now, in I am responsible, you start really seeing like your really gifts and your talents. However, the level 3 of responsibility, I am responsible, could easily start becoming a selective ownership type of responsibility, where you may find yourself in a trap like, hey, I'm responsible for this, but not for this. I'm responsible for this, but not for this. Like, hey, this one's on me. I know I'm responsible for this, but this one I am not responsible for. An example I can provide is like, I'm thinking here, an example is like, hey, I'm responsible if all of you get value on this call. I'm not really responsible for the people who didn't show up on this Zoom that they didn't get value. And that leads me to the next thing, which is the level 4 responsibility. This mindset and framework and this mantra will support you throughout 2026. Is coming from a place of, I am responsible for it all. Like that point simple. If there's one thing you take away from this entire video, this webinar, this live call, is that you operate from the place of, I am responsible for it all. Now, what do I mean by that? It means that you are the author of your life, that you are the common denominator in every single thing that you do. Doesn't matter who you're with, where you're at, person, place, or thing, you are responsible for it all. Meaning the past, the present, and the future, you're responsible for it all because you have been the common denominator in all of your past experiences. You are the common denominator right now in this present moment of what you're creating and how you're gonna get value from this call and what are you gonna do after this call. You are responsible for it all. And the really beautiful part about like this level of responsibility is that you start thinking as a faith-driven leader and a leadership at different heights, meaning I am in ownership of all outcomes around me. Even though I wasn't the one that caused the car accident, maybe it was someone that rammed into me, I could still look at it from this, like I am responsible for it all. Meaning that there's certain actions or behaviors or habits that had me come to this moment. Another example that I share of I am responsible for it all, who can relate with people breaking their word around them and not keeping their word to them? Like anyone can relate from that? Now, level 3 responsibility is saying like, I'm responsible. Well, I'm a responsible person. I keep my word, but they don't keep their word. However, level 4 responsibility operates from something like this. I am responsible for it all. Meaning even people breaking their word around me, there's something I'm doing or something I'm being that is causing them to break their word around me. And it could be like, maybe you haven't set clear boundaries. Maybe you haven't clearly stated what your values and visions are. Maybe you clearly haven't stated your why and why this is important. And if you don't communicate that, then people around you may continue breaking their word or continue doing these actions. That's why the leadership, I am responsible at all, means you stand as the author of your life. You are the power. You are the source for everything that's happening around you. That when you see a stranger, you're responsible if they're having a great day or a bad day. Why? Because you have the power to make them smile. You have the power to be able to inspire them. You have the power to be able to uplift them in that moment. You see a homeless guy that doesn't have any food and he looks like he's just having a rough day and he's just driven down, like, hey, responsible for all. You have the power to be able to provide that man a meal. You have the power to be able to provide that man maybe a blanket or something, a conversation. So going into 2026, tell yourself, I am responsible for it all. I'm responsible for it all. I'm responsible for it all. So that's pillar number 2, leadership responsible for it all. I'll get into pillar number 3, enough is enough. This is the emotional intelligence section. The emotional intelligence aspect, enough is enough. Emotional intelligence is super, super important, especially in 2026, because the era of how smart you are is over. ChatGPT and AI could replace how smart you are. The era of how high your IQ and your intelligence is coming to an end because we have brilliant systems, brilliant technology all around us. That the way that you separate yourself as a leader is based on your EQ, your ability to understand people's emotions, develop relationships, having the skill of being around humans. And if you've noticed, especially over the past decades, as technology increased, that we're stuck on the phone, who here either has or has witnessed other people struggling, like they can't have a conversation unless they're on their phone. Like, clearly, like I faced it a couple of times too. Yeah, like when I'm doom scrolling for so long, or I've been so caught up on the internet, I'm like, how do I talk to this girl again? Like, how do I talk to this human? And then we're living NPCs is because the emotional intelligence has gone down. So emotional intelligence is something that I want you to continue building in 2026 because it's going to be what separates you apart. I remember reading this book and learning from my leadership coach. He said the era of transactional leadership is over. Leaders who operate out of what results I can produce or how much money I could generate is over. not to say that it's not good to do big transactions, because big transactions equal big transformations. It's more so saying like, hey, the emphasis and focus is on transformational leadership, on emotional intelligence. Like, let me know who you really are and what's been getting in your way, so that I could support you in shifting those beliefs and turning you into committed action. So like, yeah, like let 2026 be the year where you say like, enough is enough. Like, I'm going to be building my self-worth. I am going to be coming home to the part of me that always knew I was worthy. Because in 2025, and a lot of times in my life, and you may relate to it too as well, is that two things typically get in the way of building up self-worth. And what I've had experience on is that it's the grip hold of perfectionism and the grip hold of self-doubt. Like, who has experienced any of that before? Like perfectionism and self-doubt? Everybody's raising their hand like, yep. So those are the two things that get in the way of your self-worth, of you reaching a new level. And perfectionism sounds like I have to wait for the perfect plan. I have to wait for the perfect idea. I need the perfect sales call. I need the perfect business plan. I need the perfect sign from the universe that tells me I need to go here. I need to wait for the perfect person to tell me that I'm worthy. I need to wait for the perfect person to tell me that it's a good idea. And I need to wait for the perfect new trend. Whatever it is, perfectionism can sound in so many different ways. And it's not about being perfect. It's about being imperfect and being okay with being imperfect and still doing the action with it. Like, hey, I know that this live call right now is not the most perfect. And that's okay, because I could give myself grace and compassion. Like, hey, this is the first call. This is the first time I'm attempting doing something like this. And it's only about getting better and improving from here on further. And that's how you're going to build a new level of self-worth, and you overcome those thoughts of perfection. Now, self-doubt, on the other hand, here's when self-doubt starts to creep in. So now you got over the hump of perfectionism, or that voice in your head, or that belief or thought of perfectionism. Well, that's when self-doubt starts to creep in. And self-doubt sounds a little bit like, hey, I don't know if I'm ready for it yet. I was like, I don't know if I've done enough research. I don't know if I've done my entire checklist yet. Am I worthy? Am I sure I want to take that risk? Am I sure I really want to make that decision? Like, how am I going to look like in front of everyone? Self-doubt starts to appear, especially right as soon as you're going to like execute on a decision. Right as soon as you're going to make that new move. That's when self-doubt starts to creep in. And the way to overcome that is, by telling yourself, like, you know what, enough is enough. Like, let 2026 be the year where you come home to building a new level of self-worth, because you were always worthy. You were always enough. You always mattered. And bringing it back to, scripture and faith and God, and like in Ephesians, it talks about like, don't place your identity and your self-worth in worldly things or your results or other people. That your identity and your self-worth is secured in an identity with Christ, an identity with God. Because God always saw you as worthy, and you were worthy. And sometimes we got to remind ourselves. And if today's call was about reminding you how worthy you are, then I've completed my mission, and telling people that they are worthy, because I know what the experiences are like living a life of always feeling unworthy. And that in moments in life, it's going to come again. And then you could tell yourself, or you could call someone in the community and connect with them. Like, hey, I'm feeling unworthy right now. Like, hype me up. Like, let's build each other up. Let's iron sharpen iron. And that's the importance of enough is enough. So like, tell yourself in 2026, like, enough is enough. Like, I am worthy. Like, you guys could do it right now. Like, type in the chat, like, enough is enough. I am worthy. And like, that's how you're going to live 2026. The last two pillars I'll cover is communication equals life. Now, what do I mean by that? The quality and the effectiveness on how you communicate is going to determine the quality and the effectiveness of how you live your life. Effective communication equals effective quality of life. Now, to dive a little bit deeper on that, is that if there's one skill that you need to work on, and we all, in different areas, we all know that, hey, I may get better at communication here, I may need to get better at communication here, is communication is the skill that's going to be setting you apart. Your ability to communicate specifically in person is what's going to help you stand out in this world that's changing so fast. That, hey, right now, AI can communicate. It's scary on the stuff that it can do. However, AI can't communicate in person yet. That people are looking for that in-person relationship and community again. And communication is the skill that's gonna help you there. And in the future, I'll share a framework on the communication wheel of life, because if you really look at all the areas of your life, like your faith, your family, your career, finances, relationships, education, wisdom, anything that is important for you in your life, you could always boil it down to how communication could either add value or detract value from that area of your life. Some examples I'll share with you is like, hey, your ability to communicate in your faith determine like how bold are you with stating your beliefs and standing your ground and communicating and being in prayer with God. For family, are you avoiding the tough conversations, or are you just kind of like pushing things under the rug? Are you willing to have the tough conversations and forgive and make progress, or do you want to communicate in a way where there's no communication and like we're just going to sweep everything under the rug and we'll just let things be like that, and tension will fester up and problems will arise because you didn't want to communicate? And that's the thing about communication. It solves so many different things. And I know many of you here are career focused, directly related. Like your ability to communicate will determine how much money you make. Like your ability to communicate will determine how much money you make. Like the much money you make, whether it's 30,000, 50,000, 100,000, 250,000, like are you communicating like a person who makes $100,000 a year? Are you communicating like a person who makes $500,000 a year? Are you communicating like a person that makes $30,000 a year, 50, 70, whatever it is? Numbers are subjective, but you ask yourself, well, if I want to make this type of money and this type of income, how would I communicate to get there? Like what type of communication skills do I need to build to get to that level of income or that level of status in my career? So that's the communication pillar for your quality of life in 2026. The last pillar that I'll share with all of you, and this one's exciting because think about all your, I'll say it right here. The fifth pillar is storytelling. Storytelling, 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 storytelling. It has been here for thousands of years, like thousands of years. A mentor of mine once told me, he said, like, think about AI. We're gonna experience lots of amounts of change and drastic changes in the next 10 years than our families have seen in the past 100 years. And if you really wanna stay ahead of the curve, is think about professions, think about careers, think about skills that have existed 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago and still exist today. And one of them is storytelling and public speaking. And Greg is saying, yes, image consulting, like making people look good, feel good, like cutting people's hair. Like think about those things. And storytelling is one of them. Like storytelling has been here longer than Jesus Christ was born. Yeah, like that's like the realness of like Abraham, like storytelling, and Moses storytelling, and all these different things. And I'm sharing this with you because like this is something you definitely want to master and continue growing in 2026, because that's how we relate to people. Think about your famous celebrities, influencers, mentors, or people that you do business with. Like what drew you to them? Like what drew you to them to have a relationship? And I can guarantee you it's because you knew their story and that you saw yourself in their story and that there was some relatability and some similarity. By me sharing my story, it has resonated with some of you, and we continue to build a relationship. And storytelling is going to be a big skill that you definitely are gonna wanna continue working on in 2026. And the next level above storytelling is honestly public speaking, because there's a different version between someone who could storytell because they have really nice Instagram captions and nice cuts and nice videos, but a different story is storytelling in person, in public, in front of an entire stage. So those are the 5 pillars to have a successful 2026. We have faith over fear, responsible for it all, enough is enough, homecoming, self-worth. We have communication equals your life. And then the 5th one is storytelling, public speaking. All right, sweet. You just finished watching and learning about the 5 pillars of having a successful 2026. You learned about faith over fear, how strong and important faith is. You learned about leadership, being responsible for it all. Number 3, you learned about enough is enough. It's time for you to come home and build a new level of self-worth. Let 2026 be enough is enough. And then the last couple things of communication literally equals your life. And public speaking, your ability to storytell and share your story with people out there is what's gonna resonate with people. And that story of who you're becoming that achieves those goals and has a successful 2026. I'm rooting for you. I'm proud of you. I'm glad that you took the time to watch this video. Hit that subscribe button. Comment down what your takeaway is and what you're grateful for in 2026 so far.